In 2024, I took a job where I had to make deliveries with a truck, and I can honestly say it became one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. It wasn't glamorous. Nobody dreams about waking up before sunrise to drive through cold streets carrying boxes for hours. Yet, somewhere between the long roads, the smell of diesel, and the silence of early mornings, I learned things that no school had ever taught me. I learned how to drive heavy vehicles through narrow streets without panicking. I learned how to refill the tank, how to maintain the truck, how to notice strange sounds before something broke down. I learned responsibility in a way that felt real for the first time. When you're alone on the road with deadlines waiting for you, nobody's coming to save you. You either handle it or you fail. At first, I felt completely out of place. Everyone around me already knew what they were doing. They moved fast, spoke fast, worked fast. Meanwhile, I was trying to understand how everything worked without slowing people down. Every mistake felt huge. Every awkward interaction stayed in my head for hours. There were days I drove home wondering if I was even capable of keeping the job. Still, I kept showing up. Every morning I woke up while the world was still asleep. The streets were empty, the air was freezing, and the sky was dark almost every time I left home. Most people never experience that kind of silence. It forces you to be alone with your thoughts. No distractions, no noise, just you and the road ahead. Little by little, things started changing. I began integrating with the team. People started greeting me differently. Conversations became easier. I wasn't the new guy anymore. Then eventually I started helping in the kitchen too. The workdays became even longer, but strangely I enjoyed it. There was something satisfying about being useful everywhere. We started extremely early every morning, and most of the time I arrived before everyone else. I became the person responsible for setting everything up before the day officially began, turning on the equipment, organizing supplies, preparing the space while everyone else slowly arrived one by one. There's something special about being alone in a workplace before sunrise. No customers, no pressure yet, just quiet preparation. And I took pride in that. Nobody asked me to care that much, but I did. I wanted to prove myself. I wanted people to look at me and know they could rely on me. I gave everything I had to that job. Even on days when I was exhausted, I pushed harder. Even when my body hurt, I kept going. I convinced myself that hard work would eventually guarantee security. That belief followed me everywhere. If you work hard enough, you'll be safe. If you stay loyal enough, people will value you. If you sacrifice enough, your efforts will eventually be rewarded. At least that's what I believed. Then one day, everything changed in a matter of minutes. No warning signs, no long conversation, no dramatic moment. I was simply told that I was fired because there were too many employees. That was it, just like that. I remember standing there trying to process the words while part of my brain refused to believe what I had just heard. It felt unreal. A few seconds earlier, I still had a routine, a schedule, a role, a purpose. Then suddenly, all of it disappeared. People love talking about hard work, but almost nobody talks about what happens when hard work changes nothing. That moment hit me harder than I expected. Not only because I lost the job, but because of what the job had become to me. It had become part of my identity. My days revolved around it. My discipline revolved around it. My sense of progress revolved around it. Then overnight, I was back to uncertainty. And uncertainty is terrifying. You start questioning everything. Was I not good enough? Did they secretly dislike me? Did all my effort even matter? The human mind immediately searches for reasons because pain feels easier to accept when there's an explanation attached to it. But the truth is much colder sometimes. Sometimes life simply moves on without asking whether you're ready. That experience forced me to confront something most people avoid their entire lives. Your value cannot depend entirely on external validation. Jobs can disappear, opportunities can disappear, people can replace you faster than you expect. One sentence can erase years of effort. That realization hurts, yet strangely, it also frees you. For the first time, I understood that loyalty to a company and loyalty to yourself are two completely different things. Many people spend decades sacrificing their health, their time, and their peace, believing that dedication guarantees stability. Reality doesn't always work that way. You can give everything and still lose it. And when that happens, you discover who you truly are without the title, without the routine, without the illusion of certainty. The hardest part wasn't leaving the job. The hardest part was going home afterward and realizing that The next morning, nobody needed me there anymore. The next morning was the strangest part of all. For months, my body had been programmed to wake up before sunrise. My eyes opened automatically in complete darkness, exactly like every other workday. For a few seconds, everything felt normal. Then reality came back all at once. I had nowhere to go, no truck waiting outside, no deliveries, no kitchen to prepare, no team expecting me, just silence. It's strange how quickly a routine becomes part of your identity. You repeat something long enough and your brain starts believing that this is who you are forever. Then one unexpected moment destroys the entire structure you built around yourself. I stayed in bed staring at the ceiling longer than I want to admit, not because I was lazy, because I felt lost. When people lose a job, they don't only lose money, they lose certainty, they lose structure, they lose the invisible feeling of belonging somewhere. Even if the work is exhausting, even if the salary isn't amazing, there's still comfort in knowing where you need to be every morning. Without that structure, your thoughts become louder, and mine were relentless. I replayed every interaction from the previous months in my head, every mistake, every awkward moment, every time someone looked annoyed around me. My mind kept trying to create a hidden explanation because accepting randomness felt impossible. But eventually, I realized something important. Most companies are not emotional about decisions. They look at numbers, schedules, budgets, efficiency, that's it. Meanwhile, employees often attach their emotions, loyalty, and identity to places that would replace them within days if necessary. It sounds harsh, but understanding this changes the way you see work forever. For a while, I felt angry, not explosive anger, the quiet kind. The kind that sits inside your chest while you walk around pretending everything is fine. I kept thinking about all the mornings I arrived early, all the extra effort nobody asked me to make, all the moments I pushed through exhaustion because I believed commitment would eventually protect me. It didn't. That realization broke something inside me, but it also opened my eyes. For the first time, I stopped romanticizing hard work. Hard work matters, but hard work without direction can trap you for years. Many people work incredibly hard, building lives that they secretly hate because they never stop long enough to ask themselves where all that effort is actually leading. I started noticing something after losing that job. The world keeps moving no matter what happens to you. Cars still drive by, people still laugh, stores still open. Nobody pauses life because you're hurting. At first, that feels depressing. Then, eventually, it becomes motivating because it means your life is still moving too. One bad chapter doesn't mean the story is finished. I began taking long walks during the day because staying inside made my thoughts worse. Walking gave me space to breathe, no music, no distractions, just movement. And during those walks, I started reflecting on the person I had become during that job. Before that experience, I lacked discipline, I avoided discomfort, I overthought everything. Yet, those months changed me in ways I didn't fully notice at the time. Waking up early taught me consistency. Driving trucks, taught me confidence under pressure. Working in the kitchen taught me speed and adaptability. Dealing with stressful mornings taught me emotional control. The job disappeared, but the skills stayed. That's when I understood something nobody tells you enough. Sometimes experiences are preparing you for a future you cannot see yet. At the time, I thought I was only delivering products and cleaning kitchens. In reality, life was teaching me resilience. It was teaching me how to function while exhausted, how to keep moving under pressure, how to stay calm when situations become chaotic. Those lessons became permanent. And maybe that's why pain can become valuable later. Not because suffering is beautiful, but because struggle reveals abilities you never would have discovered otherwise. Most people never realize how strong they are because their environment never forces them to adapt. Comfort hides potential, pressure exposes it. Losing that job forced me into uncertainty again, but uncertainty also creates transformation. Suddenly, I had time to think differently, time to question everything, time to ask myself what kind of future I actually wanted, instead of blindly repeating routines forever. That period became mentally dangerous in some ways because overthinking grows fast when your life loses structure. Some days I felt motivated, other days I felt completely worthless. Motivation became unpredictable, confidence disappeared and returned randomly. Yet deep down, another feeling slowly started growing. Hunger, not physical hunger, a deeper kind, the hunger to build something nobody could suddenly take away from me. Because once you experience how quickly stability can disappear, you stop viewing security the same way. You begin understanding that depending entirely on one source of income is risky no matter how safe it looks. One decision from somebody above you can change everything overnight. That truth scares most people. It awakened me. I didn't want my future controlled entirely by someone else anymore. I didn't want my survival attached to whether a company needed fewer employees next month. I wanted to create something that belonged to me, something built on my vision, my effort, my creativity. That desire became stronger every single day after getting fired, and strangely enough, losing that job may have been the exact thing I needed, because comfort would have kept me asleep much longer. After getting fired, my days became quieter, but my mind became louder than ever. At first, I hated the silence. When you spend months constantly moving, constantly working, constantly rushing from one task to another, silence feels unnatural. There's no distraction left between you and your thoughts, no schedules, no co-workers, no pressure forcing you to focus on the next task, just yourself, and that can become uncomfortable very quickly. Moments where the path suddenly disappears and you realize how fragile your plans really were. Society teaches us to believe life is supposed to follow a clean structure: study, work, survive, retire. But reality is messy. Unexpected things happen all the time. People lose jobs, relationships end, dreams fail, plans collapse. And during those moments, you discover whether your identity was built on something solid or something temporary. For a while, I felt embarrassed. Whenever someone asked me about work, I felt tension immediately. I hated explaining what happened. Part of me felt like losing the job meant losing value as a person. Even though logically I knew it wasn't true, emotionally it still affected me. That's the dangerous thing about modern life. Many people secretly attach their self worth to productivity. If they're working, they feel valuable. If they're struggling, they feel invisible. I started realizing how many people walk around exhausted, mentally drained, and emotionally disconnected simply because they're terrified of falling behind everyone else. Nobody wants to admit they feel lost, so most people pretend they have everything under control. I did the same thing. But internally, something was changing. The experience hardened me in ways I never expected. Not emotionally cold, mentally stronger. There's a difference. Before that job, small inconveniences used to stress me out. A difficult day could ruin my mood completely. But after surviving exhausting mornings, physical fatigue, pressure, uncertainty, and eventually losing the job itself, I noticed something surprising. I became calmer, not because life became easier, because I became harder to break. Pain changes your tolerance level. Things that once seemed overwhelming start looking small compared to what you already survived, and that shift becomes powerful. One afternoon during a walk, I had a realization that genuinely changed the way I viewed my future. I understood that every difficult experience in my life had forced growth out of me. None of the comfortable periods ever transformed me deeply. Comfort entertained me, struggle developed me. That doesn't mean suffering should be glorified. Nobody enjoys pain while they're living through it. Yet difficult experiences often become the moments that shape your character the most. The job taught me discipline. Getting fired taught me detachment, and both lessons were necessary because discipline without detachment becomes dangerous. You end up sacrificing yourself endlessly for things that may never truly care about you in return. Learning when to commit is important, but learning when to emotionally separate your identity from external situations matters just as much. Slowly, my mindset began shifting away from survival and toward creation. I started spending more time learning online, watching videos, reading about business, storytelling, self development, and people who built lives outside traditional systems. Something inside me became obsessed with the idea of freedom, not luxury, freedom. The freedom to control my schedule, the freedom to create, the freedom to build something meaningful, the freedom to wake up knowing my future wasn't entirely decided by someone else's decision. And suddenly, losing that job stopped feeling like pure failure. It started looking more like redirection. Maybe life removed me from that environment because I had already learned what I needed there. Maybe staying comfortable would have delayed my growth for years. Maybe some endings exist because your old identity can no longer carry you toward your future. Most people resist change because uncertainty feels dangerous, but sometimes uncertainty is exactly where transformation begins. Looking back now, I don't regret taking that job at all. It gave me experiences I'll carry forever. It taught me responsibility. It taught me work ethic. It taught me humility. And most importantly, it forced me to confront reality earlier than many people do. Nothing is guaranteed. Not jobs, not stability, not comfort. Everything can change extremely fast. That truth scares people because it destroys illusions. Yet once you accept it, you stop wasting time living passively. You start understanding that your life deserves intention. Your future deserves ownership. Getting fired hurt me. There's no point pretending otherwise. But sometimes pain interrupts the version of you that was slowly settling for less. And maybe that's exactly what happened to me. I thought I lost my direction the day they told me I was fired. In reality, that may have been the first day I truly started searching for my own path.